Continue the city council budget workshop at 6:52.
Promise not to keep you a minute after midnight. Okay. So, would you like to review any of the prior information?
No, but after that comment, we can start with the city manager salary.
Wait, we should address that after midnight.
Has been eliminated, sir. Duly noted. Duly noted. All right, so, we kind of get to the chase. Cut to the chase. We've talked about a revenue of $34.4 million.
What page you on?
Oh, okay,
Well, so that's not yet. So if you go to page 3 of 3,
okay. You're going to 3?
you can see what the current budgetary inputs look like. So it's about 37.18 million of line item inputs at this point. So obviously that's about $2.7 million more than what we have a projected revenue to do. So we're going to work to look at obviously fine-tuning the budget, going through the details. This represents really just a maintenance of current levels of effort with some of the programming that I talked about a little bit ago. Has a few adjustments on the compensation so we kind of got a little bit of growth on the payroll side. So this form basically breaks out, 3 key components of each departmental budgetary presentation. So you got personnel, and that personnel services includes payroll. It includes overtime. It includes all payroll-related expenditures. One of the things that we've factored into the budget, and as it's just kind of a rough cut right now, we'll actually fine-tune it to what the actual programming costs are. But we have a benefit that provides up to $1,500 a month towards health care coverage. Not every, but that's a fully loaded family program. Not every employee takes the full program. So some are individual only, individual and children, and some have full family coverage. So in the past, we've been budgeting fully loaded health insurance costs for every employee as if they were at the max. So we're going to go back and revise that. But this budget does reflect a 20% reduction of the overall allocation for health insurance. So that number will change slightly as we kind of go, because we're not spending at the full $1,500 per employee per month rate. Not everybody's using that full benefit. So anyway, so that's one key element that's there, so that'll adjust.
Is the PERS included in all the costs
Yes,
too?
so
Okay.
the fully
Okay.
loaded PERS
All
with
right.
the current PERS rates, all that's included in these numbers. So everything's there. We've addressed the one error that we had that we addressed in the mid-year budget adjustment. So we've got that affected both sides of the equation. So we got that dialed in correctly here too. So as you kind of go through, you can begin to see some of the things that are happening now. One other key issue is that finance and budget is being pulled out as a separate budget unit. So the staff and the related expenditures for budget and finance is pulled out now. The additional step, administration still includes IT, it includes HR and risk management. We want to pull that out as well. So when you see the next budget submission, administration will basically be city manager, assistant city manager, it'll be economic development manager, public information officer, and executive assistant to administration. So those 5 positions and program related to that will be all that's included in administration. So that's going to help provide better clarity. It's going to help provide some of the things. The other thing that we're doing is, since we now have an in-house IT manager, is we'll be moving all the IT related costs. So capital replacement cost, all the software purchase or software license and maintenance agreements, all those costs are going to be pulled together into the IT budget. So you will now be able to see all that in one location. Right now, you've got different departments doing different pieces, and funding is kind of been dispersed throughout the budget. So we want to bring all that together. And one of the key factors for that is that IT manager is going to be the point of contact that's going to oversee administration of those contracts, and those things. Make sure that as we're purchasing, that those things are being brought together and they're being done in a cost-effective way. If we can go out and do bulk purchasing, those types of things. The other thing that we're looking to do is to also try to pull some major departmental purchasing into a single non-departmental. So, for example, paper. So, order larger orders of paper every quarter instead of departments kind of ordering as needed or having.
Okay.
Some cases we're ordering paper monthly or even every other week. So if we can economize on that and kind of do more bulk purchasing a fewer times a year, kind of try to save some of those things as well.
Kind of like a general supply.
Right. So we'll begin to track that. So my objective is to see if we can identify about a 10% cut in operational expenditures across the board. PD has already identified a large amount of dollars that are going to be realized savings in the operational costs. And, for example, there's some hardware, there's some other things, cameras, other technology that they need to buy that can be bought through other restricted funds. So there's funds they have for capital purchases that are restricted simply to those types of things. So we can use those dollars instead of using tax dollars or your other general fund dollars. So those things begin to help offset some of those expenditures. But we will be going through more of a zero-based budget approach to this. So every line item, break it back down. Okay, how much paper do we think we'll need? How many pens? What are some of the unit bases we're going to use to identify how much gas, how many gallons of fuel that we really need? Some of our we do have some information in our vehicle maintenance program that allows us to be able to track maintenance costs per vehicle, those types of things. So we're pulling all that kind of information together as well. So realistically, having $2 to $3 million to cut on a budget this size is probably not atypical. But we will be presenting you a fully balanced budget. And like I said earlier, where there may be cuts or there's things that I may recommend to you to leave out, those will be fully detailed for you. So you'll see, if there's other things that you have as priorities that you want to add it in, we can do those things.
So Todd, if I understand it, like for the IT manager you talked about, you're not necessarily increasing the budget to cover the IT and what he or she is responsible for. What you're doing is pulling monies out of departments and moving that into IT.
That's right.
So the budget will be the same, but you'll be able to see where the money is easier.
Yes,
Okay.
that's right.
All right.
That's right. And so, and the new IT manager will be actually here at the end of this month. So our new IT manager, we actually got hired, and they're in their final notice. So looking forward to that. So that person will be here very soon. So, but yeah, so that those types of things will help us again economize, kind of bring more structure to what we're doing. We need to get onto a regular equipment replacement program, for laptops and printers and those types of things as well. But also when you have a person that is there who's overseeing your telephone and your data contracts, they can look at it and say, hey, we've got some other economies. There's other things we can do. We can update our system. We can do other things that will save us some money. If it's VoIP, if it's other things, we've got opportunities like that to think about and try to program in. I don't know, do y'all want to kind of go department by department and ask any questions that you may have on some of these? answer, we'll come back to you.
I have a question about what you said about IT. So you're going to move all the software into IT, but you're going to allocate the cost burden of that across departments, or are you going to allocate all the cost burden of that to IT?
It's all going to be, all the cost burden will be located in IT.
Okay.
Right. Unless there's something specific to a particular department. But if, let's take Intergov, or take, those other major citywide programs and projects, those things get moved over. If we were to implement a new registration system in the park system, that would be handled there. Any GIS-related software.
Your mobile app.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
So all those kinds of things, would be pulled over. We've got data, we've got camera systems, all that kind of stuff gets pulled into this operation.
So I have 3 departments that have significant increases. So can you just explain the community development up 56%? Over 17, 18, bottom page.
So we've got 18, 19. So we've got a $191,000 increase there, and we've got Rebecca. Do you want to address that question? Community development.
Checking an email. Can you repeat?
Yeah, there's a 56% increase for community development. It looks like most of it is in operating costs, $191,000 from the current year to the budget. So I'm just curious what's changed there. If there were more or new staff, that'd be under personnel services, correct?
That's right.
Which is up about 37%, so I'm assuming that's new staff.
I have to pull the numbers, but I believe some of the operating costs has to do with some of our new, like on-call environmental consultants that are reviewing some of the applicants that are bringing it in.
Okay. Where does the general plan monies fit into these numbers?
Well, it was moved, so I'm not sure if these original numbers included the general plan, and then it was moved to a project file. So I'm not sure if that's reflected in both years or just in the next year.
Yeah, the general fund was moved out with the budget amendment into a project account. So with the dollars being allocated towards that project.
Well, it would still show up on here under one of these departments, though, correct?
No, it wouldn't. It's over in the capital or the project budget. So
Okay.
it won't show up
I was-
in your
so
line
I
item.
found you your 190,000.
Yeah.
We took all the general plan stuff out. So they're just looking at the total.
While she's looking that up, the next one, the animal control wing, I think you already mentioned that, it's went down.
Some of it, many of it's probably the new software. When we had the new implementation of all the new software and then the new software costs.
Okay,
Intergov?
Yes. So we're still dealing with that implementation.
okay.
We also are, I apologize.
That's okay. At some point in this budget process, do we see a breakdown of that department? And
Yes.
so we can see right away.
Yeah, you'll see specific line item details and
Okay.
specific projects that
So
are.
I'm just trying to get sort of a feel here. If you don't have details, I'm okay with
Yeah,
that.
and with the mid-year, I know we reduced some of the stuff that we had expected would have been part of the operational, like travel and training, since we didn't hire
Okay.
the planner through the year. So next year, we've brought that back. So we
Okay.
reduced it because we knew we didn't have that person, so that dropped our overall budget. But some of those operating costs with travel, training, memberships, and all of that would be in next year, since we expect to have somebody for all of next year. But I can pull the full details.
Well, if we're going to get the details, eventually, I'm good with that. I'm just trying to get a feel for some of these big differences. The animal control, I think you already addressed. Can you remind me? I was sort of looking at the numbers when I heard you talk about animal control. Can you tell me what that was again?
Yeah, the costs being charged back from the animal shelter have increased significantly. So, so this is anticipating those additional costs.
But it's going. Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then again, on the revenue side, we've got to address that on the revenue side as well.
All right.
But the expenses are going down.
Yeah, and the expenditures are, again, a big portion of that. You haven't added any new staff.
Okay.
The rest of your operational costs remain relatively consistent. The prior year budgets contemplated full insurance at the full family rate, and so we've made an adjustment. So that is also replicating part of those.
Okay, we're still talking animal control.
Yes.
Okay.
But again, those numbers will change because we just took an average across. We have to redo that.
Understand.
So some departments have more than others.
Next one was community enhancement personnel. I imagine that's additional staff.
That's correct.
And then fire department 2100 is up 47%. That's the squad, additional squad? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Those were the ones that jumped out at me. Okay.
And then Todd, on the city clerk, the 35% down is due to the moving the software and stuff over.
Yes, that's correct. That's correct. So, in addition to that, we have some of our costs to do some of our services. We've got some contracts we finished out this year. We've got some proposed services coming in that don't cost as much, so that's also contributing to a reduction in some of the costs that you see here.
On any of those, or any of these, do you anticipate changing anything? Like we're staying with Laserfish, we're staying with some of the stuff that we're using, but nothing's anticipated a major change.
It's just right. It's just kind of codification, if I remember correctly.
Right. I don't anticipate any change of software. The agreements that we have are still good for a couple more years as far as software. And previous year, we had the project of the codification, which took up an amount of money for contract services. So since that's complete, that depleted the budget.
Did we ever address the issue about the extra licensing and stuff like that on Laserfish?
Yes, we met with Laserfish, and we're looking to. We have additional licenses for public view, and we're looking to up the licenses for internal.
There's also a new city clerk. Maybe she's a little more efficient than the last city clerk.
She's got the right tools.
Fire today. So, Todd, on Public Works, personnel services is up because of the new hires, right? But our operating costs, wouldn't those increase as well since they're doing more internally than? I don't see that big of an increase.
Well, and we this year we spent a lot on capital. So we bought a lot of one-time capital vehicles and equipment.
Okay.
So we've got that now in. So capital's a lot less. So we're able to reallocate those dollars into services. So it's kind of repurposing that. And again, we've been trying to target those dollars to really more match the actual restricted funds coming in for road, such as the gas tax and those things. So.
On the, and I'm sorry, and I don't recall. Did we lease the equipment or did we purchase outright?
We purchased outright.
Okay.
Some of it we had the me see, we had the Vector truck that was ordered under lease purchase, but I think everything else was bought
Okay.
straight up.
So our lease purchase, are we going to show those in a separate column on the breakdown when you do that, as far as lease vehicles getting carried through? Okay.
If you move services being offered by consultants from that to staff in-house, does that, are the consultant numbers under personnel or under operating costs?
They'll come under contract services, so they'll be itemized for you, so you'll be able to see where those.
But I mean, in these numbers here, if we're receiving service, we're paying a consultant to do something that we're moving to a staff position.
Correct. It's going to come out of operating costs and then be reflected in personnel. So there is a little bit of a switch for that as well.
Okay.
And we do, on the IT side, we do have a little bit of a carryover. We've got a current month-to-month contract that's about a $180,000 contract with the CST. And with our new IT manager coming on board, we've cut that contract back to, say, $100,000 right now, because there's a little bit of overlap that we'll have with them. And then we'll have them, so they'll be here for probably about 2 or 3 months with our new IT manager to kind of get everything oriented. And then they'll be there on month to month after that. So on an on-call basis, once we need somebody to come and take care of it. So hopefully that number will come even further down into the year after next as we fully transition over. So some of them will take a couple years to kind of finish out.
The lease on the Vector truck, that one specifically, that's not going to be reflected in the general fund. That will be in the wastewater fund. So when we get to that one, you'll see that over there, because that's what the truck will be used for operationally.
Is legal and risk management, is that all of our legal expenses? So that's both the city attorney as well as any additional?
Right. So what we budget is about $500 for city attorney fees, and then you've got about another $250 available to you for any additional specialty legal that you have. So if you get a lawsuit, whatever's out there, you've got some extra dollars there to cover that.
And then the remainder is the risk management side of that department? Okay. I thought we paid $9 million over the last 3 years to attorneys. I guess that is a little inflated.
So last year, we paid that last year?
There's something on the patch that says we paid $9.5 million to our legal attorneys over the last 3 years.
Some of our legal is going to be in our restricted fund, which is related to restricted fund activities.
Okay.
So there is some over there as well.
Okay.
Yeah, because you're paying for legal services to refinance CFD dollars. You're paying legal services for all the negotiations, for
The
all
SEC.
the litigation, SEC.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, there was a lot of legal. I mean, to overcome what y'all overcame, it's not cheap. There's no doubt about it. But fortunately, hopefully, you never have to spend that money again.
Not cheap, it saved us a lot of money.
It did. It was.
Just to reiterate, on the fire, the 1.3 million's in here.
It is. So, I mean, I've always kind of assumed, and when I'm looking at in the budget effort, that fire is probably the top priority that we have to try to get operational for sure. Okay.
It's not a big amount, but on the community pool, the operating costs, I think it was on that. I have to go back and find it now. That went up. It is going up. Why? I forget why.
I have to go back and pull the detail out.
Oh, okay. It's operating costs.
Right. I think it had to
says it's
do with.
gone up 61%, but it's not a large amount.
Right. I think it's to
overall.
do some maintenance.
Okay.
To get it, because it has to have some work done to it in the off season as well. So I think that's been budgeted in there for this cycle.
So if I wanted to compare the change over the finance department, what numbers should I be looking at for 17, 18?
So if you were to add the administration and the finance and budget together, you would see that it basically went from 2,440,000 to 2.5, about 2.6. So it went up about $160,000. And those costs really are mostly attributed to the other special projects we talked about. So so you have a little bit of offset because you wouldn't pay Civic Plus their normal maintenance fee because you would redo. So there's a little bit of addition. There's about $6,000 of additional costs attributed to the app and that. And then you've got the economic development strategic plan. You've got the communications plan and those various elements. In addition, you got some additional advertising and marketing dollars allocated to purchase supplies you may need to do the setup for events. Some additional dollars. I think there's about $5,000 on economic development to do a business brochure, for example. We need to go out and print updated information for recruitment packages. So those kinds of things are in there.
Todd, when we help an organization by working with them to donate like the $100,000 for the Cherry Festival, that be found in operating costs for community development or for?
It's really going to roll into that one. I believe is reflected. We've got a. As I recall, on the Cherry Festival allocation, we didn't hit that to administration. Was that in community services?
Yes, in community services.
Okay.
So we have a line item for special events.
That's right.
In the community services detail.
So we'll see the details, all that'll be broken up. Okay, thank you.
Did you have the numbers on?
Pulled some stuff.
Okay.
A lot of it is, some of it is from what I mentioned with the new staff and some training that we would like to be able to send the planning commissioners to the Planning Commissioners Academy. So there's a little bit in there. But a lot of it is in plan check and contract services where we're estimating the kind of things we're going to see. A lot of it is actually lower than last year, but then got adjusted mid-year. So the original budget, this current budget is actually lower than what we had originally budgeted this year, but at mid-year, since we had less, we adjusted it at mid-year because we didn't get as much as we originally expected. So we're trying to budget, because it's based on revenues, what we could expect to see as applicants come in.
Okay.
And go through that plan check process.
Perfect, thank you.
But at the end of the day, something like that, that's a fee for service, so it's a wash in the budget, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
The majority of the amount in that difference is under fees for services.
Thank you.
So what's next?
I think we understand what our model parameters are, so we'll continue to work from that perspective, use that to build out. We've got some things to double check to refine this better, and then we go to work, to scrub through these numbers and begin to pull it together. There's some additional programming things that some of the departments are want to try to ask for, that we'll have to see how we can balance that out. At this point, they're not in here.
So the next time that we see it is going to be when you bring us the draft budget,
Yes.
the balanced draft budget?
You're going to, right, the next document you're going to see will be a fully itemized, balanced budget that will show you the proposals or the requests that were provided and where those adjustments were made. What you'll also see is what the original input was on the original departmental budgetary line items, what the revision looks like. So you can see what originally came in, what got adjusted with some explanation, and you can look at additional changes you want to make.
But the adjustment won't include the new requests, right? That's separate?
Right, so no, all that will be detailed for you. So you'll get a department by department overview that'll show you original request with any enhancements, and then what the revision looks like that is your balanced budget, and then we'll go. And one of the things that we'll do for you is we'll prioritize. So anything that was requested that was removed, or anything that was requested that was included, will be prioritized for you. So hey, yes, a department may come and say, hey, this is a priority number 1 for me, but you gave me a priority 2. And I'll have to explain to you, why I would recommend the 2 over the 1, or, things like that. We may come back and say, don't include this over here. We want this one down here. It's more important to us, to get this done first. So.
Now, is the Finance and Audit Committee going to see this, Milana? Is that part of your next meeting, or is it going to come to council again before that? What's the timing?
I think we were looking at, once we have the balanced budget, that then we could share it with the committee as well as with council,
Okay.
and get input from both, and make sure that we have the right information, that everything's been considered. But to go through the rough draft and to do some of the priorities, that didn't seem to be appropriate for the committee.
Okay. Well, extraordinarily thorough on what you've done to project out, to try to predict what may happen to the revenue, and to give us full explanation of the expenses and how you're going to manage them over the next 5 years. So, and I like the colors. You did a really good job.
Not so much poor choice of color. More silver, more black.
No, really.
Because you don't want to be in the red. Just saying.
Unless you want to be.
One of the reasons that there actually weren't more questions was because it was all so thorough, all of the pieces, and then it was very orderly and organized how you presented it, which came first, which came second, and so on, so that it built up to where we are in this last piece. And I just really think you did a good job.
Appreciate that. So employees all worked hard as a team to kind of bring it all together. So
The drill down was helpful for me too. Thank you.
sure.
It's very, very good. Well presented and more detail. I think as more information is really coming out on this. Really appreciate that. Thanks a lot.
I agree, and I think the breakdown coming up will have a lot of our questions answered.
Yeah.
And follow up, get clarification, but right now, it's hard because, it's a big
Yeah.
old pile.
I'm looking
lump sums.
forward to the breakdown.
But yeah.
Well, and normally, and what I'm hoping next year is that we get a chance to start the budget. Usually, I like to get a couple months into the fiscal year, and then we sit down and have an initial workshop. We are a little bit earlier than we were last year, by about 6 weeks or so. So, hey, that's progress.
It is progress.
Do we have any time estimate on the current audit being completed?
I have a conference call tomorrow morning,
All right.
so I will get a status on where we're at tomorrow morning.
So when are we going to see it again? Next council meeting, or?
No, because we have a lot to do. So my plan was to bring you back the fully balanced budget in May,
All right.
the very latest.
Okay.
I'd like to get it back, sooner if we can. For sure, the general fund, will be prepared, but we're working on the other elements now. We can start to drill into those. Particularly CFD is going to take a lot of time and effort to kind of work our way through. Rich with Webb has already been providing us some overview information in terms of revenue projections, as well as some recommendations and some spreadsheets to start to try to apply budgetary units to the CFD dollars. So get the general fund squared away. In the meantime, we're working through the revenue projections for the wastewater fund, then get the wastewater line items squared away, and then get to the CFD. So we have a bit more to do.
Is it likely we'll have the audit before we approve the next budget? And
Yes.
could the audit change some of the numbers we're seeing today?
Yes, it could. So I would expect that we'll see some changes to, for example, the 16, 17 end of years that are currently, these are non-audited numbers. So that'll help provide some finality to some of those.
You'll note that, of course.
We'll know.
And I think last year we had a big change in the year-ending balance that affected where we were.
Yes.
You perceive something like that happening again this year?
Not yet. So
Here comes Milana.
The audit so far, I only have 3 proposed adjustments that the auditors have given me, and they're not huge or significant. And we've talked about pulling the funds apart just a little bit more in the reporting. But other than that, I haven't had any other questionable items or anything else that they've looked at that they want to reclassify or change.
we've told them if they could find an extra million,
Yeah.
we wouldn't mind.
We'll take it.
Very good. That's good.
Yeah.
On the budget, you mentioned next year. Is this budget that will be a rollover 5 years every time we have a, fiscal year next year? Every time we have a budget presentation, there will be another 5 years, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So it'll continue to roll forward.
There you go.
by year.
Thank you. Thank you.
Are we set? Okay. Sure.
Thank y'all. Appreciate your time,
All
and
right.
your patience, and working.
I'll adjourn at 7:30.